I'm never sure.
I know.
And then I'm always caught off guard, even though we start it. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
We're
Okay.
Good. We're here.
Hi, everybody. I'm back.
Hello. In person.
I'm back to where I'm supposed to be.
Dakota's here in person.
I am. I was actually thinking about, and maybe this would have been a good topic actually now that I'm thinking about it, but I was on, last time we did this, I was on my way to Toronto, and I had literally decided to go for dinner with my dad in Toronto. And we are not in Toronto, we are in Ottawa. So, and it was pretty cool because of some of the decisions that we've made in our lives. I was able to, last minute I think it was a Sunday night, I decided I was going to go to Toronto. My dad lives in the other side of Ontario, so very, very far away, but he was in Toronto for a conference. And on a Sunday night, I decided... So
he's a lot closer than normal.
Yes, much, much closer. So, and for those of you who don't know Ontario, we're talking like it takes us like
16 hours to get to Thunder Bay, and then, probably another
5 to get to Kenora. Yeah. So we're talking like 20 plus hours normally to see my dad. He was 4.5 hours away, so I decided I'm going to hop into a car. I'm going to drive to Toronto so I can go for for dinner with my dad. And I just thought it was pretty cool that, I can do that on a Sunday because of some of the decisions that we've made previously.
You stayed that was what, Saturday over to Sunday?
Or no, it was Tuesday.
No, yeah, sorry, Tuesday. You said on a Sunday.
Yeah, but I decided on a Sunday.
Oh, you decided on Sunday, then on Tuesday you were going to go.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I took the day, drove to Toronto.
I was there. I just don't.
It's okay. Jeff's not feeling well today, so it's okay. But yeah, so that's where I was last time, and it was great. I got to see my dad, also got to see one of my friends, stopped on the way to visit some other friends along the way, which was nice, some other investor friends. So yeah, it was a good trip. And I just afterwards was like, wow, that's really cool that I can do that on a Tuesday. So but that is not our topic today.
Without calling in sick.
Yes, without begging for a day off and potentially getting turned down. But that is not our topic for today. For those of you who have watched this before, welcome back. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. This is our Power Lunch. I'm Dakota. This is Jeff.
Hello,
we are Opinicon Investments. And we do this every week. So if it's your first time here and you enjoy it, we'll be back again next Tuesday. Hopefully. We're at a boot camp next Tuesday. Hopefully we'll be back.
Are we?
Oh, maybe we're not. Maybe it's not next week.
I think it is.
But either way, we try as best we can to be here every Tuesday. We change topics all the time. We try to make it as interactive as possible. So if you are here, let us know. Say hey. If you have something to add to our discussion, if you have any questions, put them into the chat. Even if you're watching this after, say hey.
We're always watching. We're always watching the chat and the comment sections. So even afterwards. So we're live on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Yeah. So it'll be available, probably easier to watch on YouTube. So if you go subscribe to our YouTube channel, then you'll be able to see it there. Mm-hmm. If you're not here live.
Yes. So with all that said, our actual topic today, which is not about me going for dinner with my dad at all, actually came from a Netflix series that we started watching on the weekend. And it's a very interesting series, kind of mind-blowing if you're an investor of any kind. Not in a good way. But I think
that's why there's a Netflix series about it.
Yeah, a lot to be learned from it, though. We were watching the Netflix series on Bernie Madoff. So for those of you who have not watched it and you're investing, it is kind of interesting. I think a lot of people know the basics of his story. He was basically, we'll call him a financial advisor type of like stocks advisor,
Fund manager.
Yes, I don't know
Fund
the exact
manager.
word of what he called himself, but he had a legitimate business, and then he had what was essentially a Ponzi scheme running in the back, and he did this for a long time. I think a lot of people lost money during this, and it was just a really eye-opening series, and I think there was a lot to learn as someone who is looking to even like invest passively or even invest actively with other people and do partnerships. It was a very extreme example, I would say, of some things maybe to look for and some things to think about when you're getting involved in projects.
Yeah, and we've heard a lot of this similar type thing of happening, I guess, in the real estate and investing world, in Saskatchewan recently, in Winnipeg recently, and we're hearing rumblings about it happening in other places even more recently. So it's something to look out for, especially as a passive investor. You want to make sure that who you are investing with is somebody that you can trust and is going to really give you the returns that they're promising you, right?
Mm-hmm. And this isn't just for, people doing big time investing. This is basically going like day to day, some things to look for, even if you're getting into an active partnership, any type of partnership, some things to think about, some things to look out for, to try to protect yourself as much as possible as an investor. So I think one of the first, should just jump right into it. Do you have anything else to add kind of on a general surface level?
I think the reason we're seeing a lot of this happening, like I said, there's been a few major cases of it, and then a lot of kind of smaller cases of it. And I think it's really because right now with the market shifting, we are seeing who's swimming naked. So as Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, you can see who's swimming naked. That's ultimately what we're seeing. We're finding who maybe bit off more than they can chew. We're seeing who maybe moved too fast, grew too big too quickly, that kind of thing. So we're gonna dissect that a little bit today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think on a high level, it's really important to do due diligence. It's easy to get excited about something that's happening. Social media, I think, is also a big player in why people are getting into some trouble, because it's really easy to make a lot of excitement on social media. It's really easy to kind of get known. Not easy to get known, but like you can make a lot of excitement on social media and get known a lot faster than before, when you put up newspaper ads. Like I honestly don't know what people were doing before. But like it's a much slower process, like word of mouth at that point. Now you have social media that can like push you globally with your message.
And it's easier to showcase you as a real winner because you write the story, right? Mm-hmm. On social media. So you need to look out for that. And yeah, like you said, you can really flood the internet with information about you, whether it's true or not. I heard the term "fake it till you make it" recently thrown around a lot, and you can do that with social media. You can fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm. So what are some ways, as a passive investor, but also as an active investor, to look into the people that you're going to be working with? What are some ways to do that due diligence? Because that's really important, and that's why we called this trust but verify.
I love that term, trust but verify.
Yeah, and I think that really hits the nail on the head. Is even if you know somebody really well personally, or maybe you feel like you do because you've seen them on social media a lot, or maybe you feel like you're kind of here and you're investing, and they're here and they're investing, so they've been doing it maybe longer. Maybe it appears they've been doing it longer. Maybe they've been doing more projects than you have, so they have almost a seniority, I guess, over you. That doesn't mean that you necessarily just want to trust. So trust but verify.
And there's a lot of coaching programs out there that are just getting the students to invest in the coach's deals, which is a huge red flag.
That's actually interesting because the coaching program that we're a part of, we're actually coaches in that, and we aren't allowed to work with our students.
That's right.
And that's the reason for that.
You have authority over that student. You have, I think that's the word I'm looking for, is authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some ways to prevent this from happening? And we're just gonna, like, this is more from our experience. Again, these are some things that I thought about on the weekend when I was watching the Netflix series, because I was like,
how could people have avoided this?
Why didn't somebody think about this? And a lot of what they were talking about with the whole Bernie Madoff situation was that he wasn't offering crazy returns. I see a lot of offerings that are like these wild returns. It's really exciting, and that immediately you're like, okay, but how are you doing that? The way that he was doing it was he wasn't offering these crazy returns. I think it was like averaging 12 to 15%, something like that, like good returns, solid returns, but nothing like, we're not talking 20, 30, 50, 100% annualized returns. Like they were pretty
steady.
Like steady, good, nothing wild.
But that was the other thing. They were steady.
So that was the problem.
They were consistent.
Was that there was never a dip. So yes, they didn't raise red flags because it was these insane returns, but there was never a dip in what was happening.
Even when every other market was going down, his returns never dipped.
Yeah, so he became this like brilliant human being in the eyes of investors because their returns were always consistent.
Beating the system essentially in their eyes.
Yeah, which to me, I'm like, yeah, okay, you're not offering a crazy return, but that's a red flag because that markets are going to change. And this is where we started thinking about, what are some of the things that you should start to question when you're looking at a deal. So the first one, I think the biggest one, is the return. A return can seem great, and there are some really good returns out there. And I think we've talked about this before, actually, is just like always chasing that highest return. You're gonna miss out because that highest return is like
far and few between.
Yeah, you're not gonna always get that like 50-100% return annualized. So you're gonna miss out on a lot of opportunities to have a steady return, but it might also be an inflated return. So where is this return coming from? Does it actually make sense? What's backing this return? And really think logically about that return. And I think that's one of the biggest things is we can sometimes get lost in excitement and the hype of everything and not actually think about, really logically think about, does this make sense? Like from a mathematical perspective, from a historical perspective, as far as whatever you're investing in, whether it's real estate, stocks, I don't know, Bitcoin, I don't know what other people invest in. But from a historical perspective, do these returns make sense? Is what they're offering actually making sense? And then from there, is it just hype? Or is there just hype that's behind it? And even if your friends have invested in it and they're like, yeah, these returns are great, it's going to be an insane project. Don't just trust your friends. Do your own due diligence on where those returns are coming from.
That's where hype comes from. It's all word of mouth, and it's all, this was in the news, or this is what I'm seeing all over social media, right? All the Bitcoin people are back all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Because Bitcoin has started to go up again.
Yes.
And they're coming back saying, I told you.
Yes. So make sure what you're investing in actually makes sense. Think about it logically. Try to take away, and this is hard for a lot of people, but try to take away the excitement and really think about the return logically. Think about the plan logically, really understand what the plan is to get those returns and make sure that it all ends up making sense. Do you have anything to add to that?
No. I don't think so. These are really questions that you're asking yourself, right? This is due diligence steps that you're doing for yourself. We can get into, we have some questions that you can ask of your investor, of your partner, of whoever it is that's managing this deal as well. But I think that pretty much covers it for questions to ask yourself.
And this is why we always say, as a passive investor, you're not off the hook for knowledge.
There's one more thing, I guess, is because we touched on it a little bit. Who are you investing with, right? What is your perception of that person? Are they kind of above you? We often hear checks are always written upwards, right? To somebody that's kind of above you. But can you take a step back and look to see what is your perception of that person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Make sure that you're not just investing with them because of a status that they have. I had a thought and I've lost it. It's gone.
Maybe it'll come back.
It happens.
Also knowing what your own level of risk is, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of return are you looking for? What kind of return is ideal for you? And what is your level of risk? Mm-hmm. Typically, the higher the risk, the higher the return, right? Higher the reward, but
the quicker the dip, potentially.
There's more risk, right?
Yeah.
So what is your risk level? And then that can, if you understand what your risk tolerance is, then that can help you just determine what type of a return you can kind of chase.
Mm-hmm. So I think that goes along with what kinds of questions that you would want to ask the person that you're getting involved with. So again, don't just trust somebody because your friend invested with them. Don't just trust somebody because of something you saw on social media. Make sure that you're doing your due diligence and asking some questions before you get involved. And to me, one that I think is really important, and a lot of investors will shy away from talking about this, but I think it's extremely important to talk about it, and it's extremely important to own it. And as a passive investor, or even someone who's an active investor that you're getting involved with, ask them about some times that a project hasn't gone the way that they wanted it to. Because I think there's this idea that as an active investor, you need to be perfect all the time, that you need to not show any faults, because if you show a fault, then people aren't going to want to work with you because something has happened in your past. But I mean, to me, and I think this goes back to like the Bernie Madoff thing, that I was like, it's insane that his returns, like that someone thought that his returns never failing was realistic, because you don't know everything when you're getting into a project. You're always going to run into problems. You're going to have times that returns aren't what you projected them to be. You're going to have projects that maybe you have to put more money into than you thought. But to me, it's not about never having a failure. It's what did you do when you went through that failure? Like, what did you do to pick yourself up, to make sure that your investors were protected, to at least make sure that their initial investment was protected? Maybe they didn't get the returns that you projected. Maybe the project didn't go the way that you had that initial discussion. But what did they do to make sure that the investors were protected, their initial capital was protected, and they did everything to make sure that, like, what they had, I'm not going to say promised because there's never any promising.
Projected?
Yeah, like what they had projected. Maybe they don't hit it, but at least everybody involved is protected. Were they open and honest about it? Did they talk to the investors about what was happening? Did they do everything they can to pivot? What did they learn from that mistake or that mishap or things not going as well?
How would they mitigate that in the future?
Exactly. To me, that's way more important, because I want to know that if something happens, somebody's going to have the integrity to not just like dig their head in the sand, but make sure that they do something to protect me, and that they have the ability to pivot and to make sure that they're doing everything they can to either fix the project and make it better, or, go with plan B, C, D, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Having multiple exits, being able to pivot is really important. That's really tools in your tool belt, right? So having different strategies that you can utilize to bring that project to the finish line less, I guess, unscathed, or
in the best way they can.
In the best way they can.
Yeah. Sam says, if an investor is perfect, I would be suspicious.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
It's a red flag. It's a red flag. If they've never had an issue with any other deal, either they're brand new and they've never had another deal, or they're hiding something from you.
Yeah. So ask an investor that. Ask them, if you're going to be working with them, ask them about a time that a project didn't go as well. And if they say, everything's always been perfect, I've never made a mistake, maybe...
Could be a unicorn, but I'd be suspicious. Yes, absolutely.
I'd be very suspicious.
And you can ask them straight up, like, what is my risk? What is the risk in this deal? Mm-hmm. If they come back and say absolutely no risk, well, then they're not looking at every possible scenario in this case. They're not looking at it from the right lens. They're just looking at, they're only looking at the potential of the deal rather than looking at what is the worst case scenario in this deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there are different levels of, like Jeff was saying earlier, there's different levels of risk with any deal. Some require a whole building to be turned over. So for example, if you're in Ontario, I've seen some deals where it needs to work with the whole building turning over. But then you start to question, and this is where the logic starts to come in, where you're like, okay, but Ontario, it's really hard to turn over a tenant. So how do you plan to do that? Mm-hmm. What's the plan, and what
happens if you can't get everybody out? Yeah,
like what's the reality if you can't turn over the whole building? And is your number of units that you need to turn over realistic? Because the numbers could look incredible, but if you have to turn over every unit for that to make sense and for that to happen, so think logically. This is a bit off track, but then going back to talk to an investor about some of the times that things haven't gone well and how did they deal with it. And even ask maybe some investors that they've worked with. Ask them, have they run into any issues?
Like a reference check.
Yeah, get a reference. Have they run into any issues, and did they talk to you about that? How did they work to pivot? Did they make something happen out of that issue? So don't take someone's failure as you shouldn't work with them. If they're open and honest about it and they've pivoted out of it and they did it with integrity, I would take that as a green flag, if anything, if it all makes sense in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Making sure that your goals align as well. So you as the passive investor, or whatever, you in your shoes and the investor that you're looking to partner with or invest with, your goals need to align, short-term and long-term, right? Because some of these real estate deals, we're looking at 20, 30 years, right? Maybe longer. And you want to ensure that you're going to get into this deal with the same vision from both sides.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, so those are some of the things that that you can ask an investor that you're potentially going to work with. Mm-hmm. What do you want to ask yourself before you get into a project? So you already said one. What is your risk tolerance?
What's your risk tolerance? What kind of returns are you looking for? Those kind of go hand in hand. Well, yeah. They should go hand in hand.
You also need to know what your goals are.
If they don't go hand in hand, you need a reality check.
Yes.
To put it bluntly.
Yeah. And then do a gut check. And that gut check can be part of, what logically makes sense, and versus what is this just hype? Is this just excitement? So do a good gut check. And, I think we were talking about this earlier, that some people don't have don't get that same strong gut feeling. I wonder if people just don't listen to it as much. How do you handle talking with passive investors who don't know what they want?
It's a great question. I would say they need to figure out what they want, because I wouldn't want to bring somebody into my deal that doesn't know what they want, because their mind could change just like that.
Yeah.
And without having that discussion ahead of time and making sure that everybody's on the same page, can be setting yourselves up for failure within the partnership.
Yeah. And ask good questions.
Yeah.
So you might be able to help to guide them to
Mhm.
see and have a better understanding of what they want, because they may come into a meeting not knowing what they want. But if you ask really good questions and continue to ask questions until you get to the root of it, you might actually be able to figure out for them, with them,
Yeah.
what they want.
Some people just come in saying, I want cash flow. But then you determine later in the meeting that they're already a high income earner. Do they really want to increase their tax bracket potentially, or increase their actual income? Maybe what they really want and need is maybe a capital preservation deal. And that's something that's going to be more beneficial for them.
Yeah.
Right? But you're only going to get those answers by asking good questions.
Yeah. Hey, Jasmine.
Welcome in.
So I think we have to cut this one a bit short today.
Okay.
But
Trust your gut.
I think trust your gut.
Do your due diligence.
Think logically. And even if you're passive,
You're not off the hook.
you're not off the hook. Get yourself educated so that you can do due diligence, so that you can use logic to make sure that it's not just hype. And help your friends. Like if you see somebody that is getting involved in some stuff and you have that experience and they might not, help them out. Maybe do some education with them.
Ask them the right questions.
Yeah. Help your friends. We're a community. Real estate investing there's only so many of us, so help your friends.
Before we go, we have an event coming up this week.
Oh yeah,
So
speaking of community.
if you're in Ottawa, I know that you have to go, so we're just gonna cut and jump right into this. Here we go. Scan this QR code. Where is it? This here is the event that we have. We'll be talking about negotiations. What are you doing?
I couldn't figure out which way it was. Don't mind me. You see it.
We'll be talking about negotiations, about how we negotiated over $700,000 of equity on the buy on brand new builds. On the latest acquisition we did, which was 24 units.
Yeah. You can see there is a cost to the event, but we actually have 2 free tickets that we can give away.
First come, first serve.
First come, first serve.
Reach out quick.
Once they're gone, they're gone. But we have 2, so send us a message, and we hope to see you there. Actually, we will see you there. If you're in Ottawa, you better be there. It's going to be fun. All right, we will see everybody next week, hopefully. If anything, we might just have to jump on and say, hey, share this with a friend that you think would find it useful. And what else? Like it. Share, do your thing.
Make sure you subscribe to be notified when we go live again.